We're in Turin, in northern Italy, in the dim hush of the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist. Here, behind bulletproof glass, inside a sealed capsule filled with inert argon, rests what may be the most disputed, most studied, and most unsettling piece of cloth in human history. The Shroud of Turin. 4 meters of ancient twill-woven linen, yellowed by time. And on it, pale, almost impossible to catch with the naked eye, the imprint of a tortured human body. For centuries, millions of believers have knelt before it, seeing the true burial shroud of Jesus Christ, a silent witness to the resurrection. And for just as long, skeptics and atheists have rejected it, calling it a brilliant medieval fake, an ingenious hoax by an unknown master, or even an early experiment with a camera obscura. It seemed the argument was finally settled in 1988. Radiocarbon testing, carried out by 3 of the world's leading laboratories, delivered a hard verdict. The cloth belonged to the Middle Ages, dated between 1260 and 1390, the age of knights, plague, and mass forgery of relics. The scientific world exhaled with relief and closed the file. But too soon. The case isn't closed. Right now, while you're watching this video, a quiet but truly thunderous revolution is unfolding inside closed physics labs. Before we get to the main part, we'd like to ask for a small bit of support. A like and a subscription are the best thank you. Thank you. Scientists are no longer studying the shroud through a magnifying glass or trying to solve it only under a microscope. Now, they're looking at it through neural networks. Artificial intelligence, trained to detect hidden patterns where the human eye sees only emptiness, has found something that made physicists, chemists, and forensic experts fall silent. It isn't paint. It isn't pigment. It isn't blood. It's a digital signal. An anomaly that seems stitched into the atomic structure of the linen fibers themselves. Data that shouldn't be there at all. Data that simply cannot exist on an ordinary piece of fabric. And this is where what may be the largest investigation of all begins. An investigation that doesn't just challenge religious history, but our understanding of matter itself. We're going to open sealed archives. We're going to sift through terabytes of scans. And we're going to try to answer a question that unsettles the Vatican and leaves even Nobel-level minds without an easy answer. What kind of monstrous energy left this trace? Get ready, because what the algorithm found does not fit inside the frame of classical science we were taught. But to grasp the scale of this discovery, we have to go back to the moment of the loudest disappointment. 1988. 3 independent laboratories, Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona, publicly announced their verdict. The shroud is a forgery, and its age is no more than 700 years. Newspapers around the world run headlines like, "The Fake of the Century." The church absorbs the blow, outwardly calm. It seemed the question was closed forever. But there was one problem. A problem historians preferred not to notice at the time. And it was only years later that modern mathematicians and data analysis algorithms finally saw it. The sample used for the test was cut from the very edge of the cloth, the exact area people had gripped with their hands for centuries during public exhibitions. The zone that suffered most in the catastrophic fire of 1532 in Chambéry, and, most importantly, the section medieval nuns carefully repaired using a technique of nearly invisible reweaving. Modern research using state-of-the-art machine learning and spectroscopy exposed something staggering. The chemical composition of that cut fragment differs sharply from the main body of the shroud. It was a contaminated sample. A mixture of ancient linen and medieval cotton, dyed to resemble linen and skillfully woven in during restoration. Artificial intelligence, studying the weave structure in high-resolution macro photographs, clearly mapped the boundaries of the foreign fibers. For all this time, our certainty rested on a fatal error. We were dating an entire palace by a single new brick slipped in during a repair. And that discovery opened the floodgates. If the 1988 date is flawed, then how old is this linen really? This is where a technology steps in that can see through time itself. Forget radiocarbon. It becomes unreliable when you're dealing with an object that survived fire, candle soot, and the touch of thousands of dirty hands. Enter wide-angle X-ray scattering, WAXS. This is a tool from solid-state physics, normally used to study nanomaterials. Scientists at the Institute of Crystallography in Bari, Italy, led by Professor Liberato De Caro, decided to measure not isotopes, but the aging of cellulose's crystalline lattice itself. Linen is plant fiber. Its threads are made of long molecular chains. Over time, under natural background radiation, temperature, and humidity, those chains break down and fracture along a very specific, measurable path. These are natural atomic clocks. You can't trick them. You can't forge them. You can't reset them with ordinary contamination. A neural network compared the shroud's cellulose degradation curve against thousands of linen samples whose ages are archaeologically secure, from Egyptian mummy wrappings to medieval tablecloths and Renaissance textiles. The algorithm processed millions of microscopic structural changes in the fibers and produced a result that reportedly left the laboratory in total silence. Match to medieval samples? 0%. A complete mismatch. But when the data were compared to fabrics found at Masada in Israel, the curve aligned perfectly. And that's the cold turning point. Because the computer doesn't care about religion. It doesn't care who Jesus was. It sees only crystal physics. And that physics says one thing. This linen is 2,000 years old. Woven in the Near East in the era of Emperor Tiberius. That was the first strike. The shroud turned out to be contemporary with Christ. But if the cloth itself is authentic, then what exactly is recorded on it? This is where artificial intelligence detected that impossible signal. Take any photograph. Take a Rembrandt. Take a Leonardo. They're flat, two-dimensional images. In a normal image, intensity depends on simple things: how much paint the artist applied, or how the light hit the film. Feed that kind of picture into a 3D analyzer, and you get warped chaos. Noses collapse, eyes bulge forward, shadows turn into craters. Because in any painting or photograph, light and shade are shaped by lighting, not by real topography. But the shroud behaves differently. It's an anomaly that breaks the logic of imaging specialists. Back in 1976, scientists from the STURP project, the Shroud of Turin research project, used a device called the VP-8, originally built to analyze the terrain of the Moon and Mars. When they placed the shroud image under the scanner as an experiment, they expected noise. Instead, an anatomically accurate three-dimensional model of a human body appeared. Modern AI has rechecked that result down to micron-level precision and confirmed it. What we're looking at is topography. The dark and light areas on the cloth do not encode color. They do not encode shadow. They encode distance. The distance between the body and the fabric at the moment the image formed. The closer the cloth was to the body, the tip of the nose, the forehead, the knees, the darker and denser the imprint. The farther away, the eye sockets, the neck, the fainter it becomes. This isn't interpretation. It's a strict mathematical relationship. No artist, medieval or modern, can manually create an image that obeys a complex physical decay law of intensity versus distance with that level of precision. Not with a brush, not with fingers, not with steam, not with acid. Everything looks as if the body itself emitted information in all directions, and the cloth simply recorded that three-dimensional map. Now for the details that leave art historians with nowhere to go. The image on the shroud is a negative. That became clear in 1898, when an amateur photographer named Secundo Pia developed his glass plate in a darkroom and nearly dropped it in shock. On the photographic negative, a sharp, detailed, almost majestic positive emerged, a realistic face marked by calm and an eerie inner strength. But here's the key question. In the Middle Ages, when skeptics claimed the forgery was made, no one even knew what a photographic negative was. Photography itself wouldn't be invented for another 500 years. So why would a falsifier create an image that looks like a strange, blurry stain to the naked eye? An image whose true appearance could only be revealed in the distant future, after the invention of new technology. It's absurd. It contradicts the very logic of art. An artist creates for the audience of their time, for people who are looking here and now. But the AI went even deeper. It analyzed the microstructure of the image at the level of individual fibers and found what scientists call a lack of directionality. When a human being draws, the hand moves in a direction, left to right, top to bottom, in arcs, in strokes, in quick jolts. Under a microscope, that always leaves a trace: direction, tool marks, pigment layering, the structure of contact. Here, nothing. The image has no direction. It didn't emerge gradually. It appeared all at once, everywhere, simultaneously. And then comes the most unsettling part: depth. Any pigment sinks into material. Oil, tempera, watercolor, blood. Capillary action pulls it down into the threads. But the shroud's image sits only on the surface. The thickness of the colored layer is only about 200 nanometers, comparable to the thickness of the cell wall of a single flax fiber. If you carefully scrape the image with a razor, it disappears. Inside, the fiber remains snow white. The thread isn't dyed through. Only the outermost shell has been altered, and altered at a chemical level. What we're looking at is dehydration and oxidation of cellulose, as if something scorched only the topmost molecular layer without touching the core. Which raises the obvious question: what technology could even produce an effect like that? The answer offered by physicists at Italy's National Agency for New Technologies sounds almost like science fiction. For 5 years, researchers at ENEA ran experiment after experiment trying to reproduce this surface-only effect. They scorched linen with hot objects, treated it with acid, rubbed in pigments, pressed heated bas-reliefs against it, and every time the result was different. Any burn always penetrated deeper, destroying the fabric's structure. The only method that produced an effect identical to the shroud was irradiating the cloth with an extremely powerful excimer laser, short pulses of hard ultraviolet light in a vacuum. Artificial intelligence calculated the required energy parameters, and the numbers are frightening. To produce an imprint like this on a cloth roughly 4 by 1 meters, the body wrapped in it would have had to become, if only for a fraction of a moment, a source of colossal light emission. We're talking about 34 trillion watts of vacuum ultraviolet. For comparison, that's on the order of the combined output of all the power plants on Earth, concentrated into a single point. And the flash would have to last less than 1/40 billionth of a second. Any longer, and the fabric would simply vaporize, burning away without a trace. Any weaker, and the image wouldn't form at all. That is the impossible signal. It's as if the cloth recorded the instant a body dematerialized, or a phase transition where matter turned into energy. We don't have lasers capable of delivering that kind of flash across the entire area of the human body. We can do something remotely comparable on a pinhead-sized spot, not across a full body all at once. It feels like future technology printed onto the fabric of the past. Researchers call it an event horizon. But the shroud isn't only the physics of light, it's also the biology of pain. Artificial intelligence, analyzing spectral data from the bloodstains visible on the cloth as darker areas, confirmed it. This is real human blood. Type A Rh negative, male DNA. But it doesn't end there. Chemical analysis revealed abnormally high levels of bilirubin, creatinine, and ferritin in the blood. Any forensic pathologist knows what that points to. The person whose blood is on this cloth was in a state of extreme, almost inhuman, physical stress before death. He endured brutal torture. Bilirubin spikes to these levels when the body is literally breaking under pain, shock, and dehydration. The blood on the shroud wasn't applied with a brush. It flowed from wounds and clotted directly on the linen. And this is where the AI caught a detail the human eye missed for a long time. Beneath the bloodstains, there is no body image. Let that sink in. It means one thing. Blood reached the cloth first. It soaked into the linen, and only later Afterward, the body image appeared. The blood acted like a shield, like a screen, protecting those fibers from the same ultraviolet emission. Under the dried crust of blood, the linen remains white. And that shatters the artist theory completely. An artist works in the opposite order. First you create the body image, then you add red color where the wounds are. Here the sequence is reversed. First wounds, contact, blood, then the flash of light. More than that, in the heel area, the AI detected soil particles, aragonite, a rare form of travertine. Spectral analysis showed its chemical signature, down to trace strontium impurities, matches limestone characteristic of the area around the Damascus Gate in Jerusalem. And pollen trapped in the fibers belongs to plant species that grow only in the Middle East and bloom in spring. These are not guesses. These are forensic traces tying the artifact to a specific place and time with brutal precision. Jerusalem, 1st century, spring. AI then built a detailed, disturbingly precise 3D reconstruction of the man on the shroud. This is not a serene icon. It's closer to a forensic autopsy report on the victim of a violent death. The algorithm counted the injuries. Hundreds. More than 100 marks from a whip. The shape of the wounds, dumbbell-like tears in the skin, points to the Roman flagrum, a horrific, multi-tailed whip with lead weights at the ends. The blows cover the back, chest, and legs. There is almost no untouched area. The AI even determined the strike angles. The man was scourged by 2 executioners of different heights standing behind him. On the right shoulder, there is a broad, blurred abrasion consistent with a heavy, rough wooden beam. Pathological skin wear mixed with dirt. This man carried something extraordinarily heavy, something like a crossbeam, and fell, striking his face on stone. His knees are smashed raw. His nose is broken, cartilage displaced. His right cheek is swollen from a blow with a stick. But the strongest proof of authenticity is hidden in the wounds on the hands. For centuries, medieval and Renaissance artists depicted nails driven through Christ's palms. That was the canon. But modern anatomy and experiments on cadavers show the palms can't hold the body's weight. The tissue tears, and the person would slip off the cross. The nail has to be driven through the wrist, into the so-called space of Destot, a dense junction of bones. And on the shroud, the wounds are exactly there, in the wrist area. When a nail enters that point, it damages the median nerve and triggers an automatic reflex contraction. The thumbs snap inward, pressed hard against the palm. That's why on the shroud imprint, you see only 4 fingers on each hand. The thumbs aren't visible because they're tucked underneath. A medieval forger couldn't have known anatomy and neurology at this level. He would have painted wounds in the palms and shown all 5 fingers, just like the icons of his time. The shroud goes against artistic tradition, yet it matches the harsh, physiological reality of Roman crucifixion with chilling precision. This is an anatomically flawless execution document. Using contrast enhancement and noise reduction algorithms, AI uncovered another detail that for years was dismissed as pareidolia, as imagination playing tricks. Round objects resting over the man's eyes. Coins. That aligns with an ancient Jewish burial custom, placing objects over the eyelids to keep them from opening. The algorithm detected letters on one of the coins, UCAI, a fragment of Tiberio Kaiseros, Tiberius Caesar, and the image of an augur's staff, a litus. Numismatists identified it as a pilate lepton, a small bronze coin minted in Judea under the prefect Pontius Pilate only between 29 and 31 AD. Chronologically, it's an almost perfect match. Critics immediately celebrated, because on a proper coin, they argued, Kaiseros should be spelled with a Latin S rather than a sigma. The forger made a spelling mistake. It looked like everything would collapse right there, but it didn't. Archaeologists re-examined museum collections and found genuine coins from that period with exactly that same misspelling of Kaiseros, a rare dye error from a limited batch. A 15th century forger couldn't have known about an ultra-rare orthographic anomaly on a 1st century coin, something archaeologists would only discover, catalog, and debate in the 20th century. He would have spelled it correctly. That mistake is precisely what makes a forgery almost impossible. It's the signature of time itself. Now imagine something simple. You cover a human face with cloth. The fabric drapes over the nose, sinks into the eye sockets, hugs the cheeks, bends around the ears. If a face somehow imprints onto that cloth in that moment, then later, when you lift the fabric and lay it flat on a table, the image should inevitably distort. The face would widen, the ears would slide backward, proportions would warp. That's basic unfolding geometry. But the face on the shroud is not distorted. Its proportions are preserved. It looks as if we're viewing it from a distance, or as if it was projected directly onto a flat plane. How is that possible? Physicists who work in computational modeling say it can happen only in one almost unbelievable scenario. If, at the moment the image formed, the cloth remained flat, and yet somehow passed through the body, or the body became transparent to matter. AI modeled the process. The fabric would have had to be weightless, stretched evenly and perfectly flat, or the body would have had to lose density, allowing the cloth to pass through it, and in that same instant, receive the radiation dose that created the imprint. That pulls the ground out from under any strictly materialist explanation. We're looking at a phenomenon that violates the familiar rules of interaction between solid objects. It feels like a recording of the moment the physics of our world glitched. And now we arrive at the central and most uncomfortable question. If we have all this data in our hands, WAXS dating, three-dimensional information, the laser-like nature of the image, anatomical precision, soil nanoparticles, pollen, pilot coins, why hasn't official science acknowledged it? Why do school textbooks still call it a medieval forgery? The answer is both simple and sad. Fear. Modern science is built on reproducibility. If an experiment follows scientific rules, it should produce the same result in any laboratory on Earth. But the shroud doesn't play by that rule. We can't reproduce it. We can't create a radiation flash of that magnitude from inside a human body. We can't make a body pass through cloth. To acknowledge the shroud as authentic is to acknowledge a phenomenon that sits outside known physics, to admit a singularity. And for a materialist scientist, the words miracle or resurrection are professional suicide, an udar to reputation, the end of a career. It's a forbidden zone. That's why they stay quiet. They publish in narrow journals of crystallography and optics. They write in dry, cautious language, avoiding loud conclusions. They speak of an unknown oxidation mechanism, of a stochastic process. They step around the words that could cost them grants and status. But the data produced by artificial intelligence can no longer be swept under the rug. They're accumulating, and their mass is approaching a critical point. We are standing before an artifact that may be the most studied object in human history. And the deeper, the more precisely we look, the more questions it asks. Artificial intelligence, free of faith, religion, and human prejudice, looked at the Shroud of Turin with its cold, digital gaze and saw what people couldn't see for centuries because of their own blindness. It saw three-dimensional topography where there is only flat cloth. It saw a structure scorched by light, not applied by a hand. It saw an age that aligns with the era of the gospel events. It saw the blood of a man tortured to death under the Roman rules of execution. The shroud is not a painting, it's a photograph. The first, and only, photograph in history made not with reflected sunlight, but with light that came from inside matter itself. It's the negative of an event that changed the course of history. A black box of the resurrection. Science has hit a wall, and that wall is woven from linen. We're living in a rare moment when human technology is beginning to confirm legends that humans themselves stopped believing long ago. And maybe the shroud was left to us as a message across centuries, a message that could only be read now in the 21st century, when we finally have lasers, tomographs, and neural networks. The code has been cracked. But are we ready to accept what it says? Write in the comments, what do you think caused that flash? And why is official science so afraid to acknowledge what a cold, indifferent machine keeps recording with perfect consistency? This was the Turin Code. The truth is out there, and it is blinding, unbearably bright. A huge thank you to everyone who watched to the end. Your support, a like and a subscription, really matters to us. And don't forget to hit the bell so you don't miss new videos and always stay up to date with our latest releases.